Picture this. You check your phone. Your bank app shows $50,000. Yesterday, it showed $50,000. The number hasn't changed, but overnight, that money is worth half what it was worth when you went to sleep. Your rent hasn't changed. Your car payment hasn't changed. But everything you need to buy to stay alive has doubled in price. This isn't a thought experiment. It's a pattern that's repeated throughout history. And every signal suggests America is next. Welcome to the paper throne. Every empire in history has built its power on money, and when that money fails, the empire falls with it. Today, we're going to walk through something most Americans refuse to believe is possible: a 50% overnight devaluation of the US dollar. Not a slow decline over decades, not a gradual adjustment, an overnight collapse that changes everything. We'll examine what happens in the first hours, the first days, the first months, and the first year. What you'll eat, where you'll work, and how society itself transforms when the money everyone trusts suddenly isn't worth the paper it's printed on. This isn't fear-mongering. This is pattern recognition. Because this exact scenario has happened before, multiple times, to major economies, with functioning governments and modern institutions, and it can happen here. Currency crises don't happen because of economics alone. They happen because of psychology. Money only has value because we agree it has value. That's it. There's nothing backing the dollar except collective belief. And when that belief breaks, it breaks fast. Think about Zimbabwe in 2008. Think about Weimar Germany in 1923. Think about Argentina, not once, but 5 separate times in the last century. These weren't primitive economies. Zimbabwe had a GDP larger than many African nations. Weimar Germany was one of the most advanced societies on earth. Argentina was once wealthier per capita than France. They all had central banks. They all had economists assuring everyone that their currency was stable. They all had people who went to bed believing their savings were safe. And they all woke up to discover they were wrong. Right now, America sits on a powder keg. $37 trillion in national debt. That's trillion with a T. And we're adding another $2 trillion every year. Our debt-to-GDP ratio is at 132%, higher than any peacetime period in our entire history. But here's what makes it different this time. The world is building exit routes from the dollar system. China and Russia are trading in yuan and rubles. Saudi Arabia, the country that gave us the petrodollar, is now accepting payment for oil in Chinese currency. The BRICS nations are developing a gold-backed alternative to the dollar. The foundation is cracking. Most Americans don't see it because they're standing on top of it. But when it gives way, it won't give a warning. How does it start? Maybe it's a geopolitical crisis. Maybe it's a revelation about government finances that destroys confidence. Maybe it's a cyber attack that freezes the banking system. The specific trigger doesn't matter. What matters is this. Once confidence breaks, it cascades. Foreign investors dump treasury bonds. The Federal Reserve faces an impossible choice: raise rates and crash the economy, or keep rates low and watch the dollar burn. They choose door number 2, because they always do, and within 24 hours, the dollar has lost half its value against other currencies. Now the real crisis begins. The first thing that happens isn't economic, it's psychological. News breaks that the dollar has collapsed overnight. Social media explodes. Everyone tries to access their bank accounts simultaneously. Banking apps crash from traffic. ATMs empty within hours, not because there's no money, but because everyone wants cash in hand, as if paper bills are somehow safer than digital numbers. Credit card systems strain under transaction volumes they were never designed to handle. People are trying to buy anything, everything, before prices adjust upward, because they know what's coming. Let's start with something simple. Something you do every week without thinking about it. You go to buy groceries. America imports 15% of its food. Coffee? Almost all of it imported. Chocolate? 100% imported. Bananas, a staple in American households. Imported. Half of our fresh fruit crosses a border to get to your store. When the dollar loses half its value, these imports don't gradually increase in price. They double, immediately. That $5 bag of coffee is now $10. But that's just the beginning. Because even domestic food production relies on imports. Fertilizers, many imported. Farm equipment, many components imported. Fuel for tractors and combines, priced globally in dollars. So even the food grown in Iowa sees price increases. Oil is priced globally in dollars. When the dollar loses half its value, oil effectively doubles in price for Americans. That $4 gallon of gas, it's now $8 overnight. But this isn't just about your commute. This is about the entire economy. Trucks move goods across the country. When fuel costs double, shipping costs double. And shipping costs are embedded in the price of everything you buy. Your Amazon order, the delivery cost just doubled. Your groceries, the truck that brought them to the store just doubled its rates. Your utility bill, the power plant burns natural gas. The gas just doubled in price. Everything that moves, everything that's manufactured, everything that requires energy, which is everything, just got more expensive. And it happened in one day. By the end of week 1, you're living in a different country. Stores have implemented rationing. Gas stations have daily purchase limits. ATMs are still empty because banks can't refill them fast enough. Your paycheck hasn't changed, but your purchasing power has been cut in half. That $50,000 salary that felt comfortable last week, it now feels like $25,000. Your retirement account still shows the same number, but that number is worth half what it was. And this is just the beginning. Here's what happens to jobs in the first month. Any business that relies on imports faces an existential crisis. Electronics retailers? Done. You can't sell $2,000 televisions when your customers are struggling to buy food. Clothing chains, closing locations. When a $30 shirt becomes a $60 shirt overnight, people stop buying shirts. Auto dealers, laying off staff. Nobody's buying new cars when they can't afford gas for their current one. The unemployment numbers start climbing. Not gradually, exponentially. But here's where it gets interesting. Some sectors start growing. Agricultural employment surges. When imported food is expensive, domestic food becomes valuable. Farmers who couldn't compete with cheap imports from Mexico suddenly find themselves with more orders than they can handle. The problem? Modern farming requires fertilizers, pesticides, and diesel fuel, all of which just doubled in price. So farmers have to choose: maintain current practices and go bankrupt, or return to more labor-intensive methods that reduce productivity but don't require expensive inputs. Many choose the latter, which means more jobs, but lower output. More people working to produce less food. That's called economic regression. Mortgage rates spike. Lenders aren't stupid. They're not going to loan money in a currency that's collapsing. Rates that were 7% last month are now 15, 18, maybe higher. Which means nobody can buy a house. The housing market freezes. But here's the strange part. If you already own a home with a fixed-rate mortgage, you're in an unusual position. You can pay off your $300,000 mortgage with dollars that are worth half what they used to be. You're effectively getting a 50% discount on your loan. Meanwhile, your house, being a physical asset, retains its real value. In dollar terms, it might now be worth $450,000 or $500,000. But this wealth gain is meaningless if you can't afford to buy anything else. You're rich on paper, poor in practice. America imports 80% of its generic drugs. 40% of active pharmaceutical ingredients come from overseas. When the dollar collapses, these imports double in price. Insulin, already controversial, becomes truly unaffordable. Cancer treatments that cost $5,000 per month now cost $10,000. Hospitals face impossible decisions. Do they keep offering services they can't afford to provide? Or do they start rationing care based purely on who can pay? Many choose option 2. Emergency rooms overflow with people who can no longer afford their prescriptions and are experiencing medical crises as a result. The American healthcare system, already strained, begins to break entirely. Within 1 month, American society splits into 2 groups. Group 1, people who owned real assets before the collapse. Property, gold, foreign investments, physical goods. Their wealth largely survived the dollar's collapse because it wasn't denominated in dollars. Group 2. Everyone else. People with savings accounts, retirement funds, regular paychecks. Their wealth was dollar-denominated, and half of it just evaporated. The wealth gap explodes, not over years, but over weeks. And this creates social tension that makes previous inequality debates look trivial. By the end of year 1, American geography has restructured itself. Rural areas, especially agricultural regions, are doing relatively well. Food production is valuable, land has retained value. Communities that never fully participated in the globalized economy aren't as affected by its collapse. Urban areas, particularly coastal cities built on finance and international trade, are struggling. The industries that made them wealthy, global finance, tech, international trade, have contracted dramatically. The high-paying jobs have disappeared. The cost of living remains high, but incomes have collapsed. People start moving, not in a trickle, but in a flood. Cities lose population for the first time in decades, not because people want to leave, but because they can no longer afford to stay. Remember Walmart, Target, Amazon? Their entire business model was built on cheap imported goods sold to middle-class Americans. When those goods double in price, the model breaks. Walmart tries to maintain its everyday low prices and starts losing money on every transaction. Target raises prices and watches customers disappear. Amazon faces shipping costs that make free delivery impossible and product costs that make competitive pricing fantasy. The retail giants that defined American commerce for decades either adapt or die. Many choose death. But nature abhors a vacuum. As corporate retail collapses, something else emerges: localized trade. Farmers' markets transform from weekend attractions to essential commerce. Local craftspeople find demand for goods that don't require imports. Barter systems develop. You fix my car, I give you vegetables from my garden. You teach my kids, I repair your roof. It sounds quaint, almost nostalgic. It's actually economic regression, the abandonment of specialization and trade that took centuries to build. But when the currency fails, people adapt. The government you knew in year 0 doesn't exist in year 1. The Constitution remains the same, the institutions remain the same. But the actual function of government has transformed entirely. Federal power contracts. Not by choice, but by necessity. When you can't afford to maintain military bases overseas, you close them. When you can't afford interstate projects, you cancel them. State and local governments fill the void. Some successfully, some catastrophically. Texas might implement its own currency system. California might negotiate independent trade deals with Asian partners. The United States doesn't dissolve, but it becomes dramatically less united as regional economies diverge based on their specific advantages and disadvantages in the new reality. Something unexpected happens to American manufacturing. For decades, we couldn't compete with cheap overseas labor. But when imports double in price overnight, American-made products suddenly have a massive advantage. Factories that closed years ago become valuable again. Industrial towns that became ghost towns see new life. But this renaissance comes with a catch. These factories need equipment, much of it imported. They need raw materials, many imported. They need energy, priced globally. So the renaissance is slower, more painful, and less prosperous than you'd expect. Jobs return, but the wages those jobs pay can't keep up with the cost of living that's doubled. You're employed, but you're still poor. Here's what nobody talks about when discussing currency collapse: the social cost. Families that had been middle class for generations suddenly can't afford to eat the way they used to. Parents watch their children go hungry. Elderly people choose between medication and food. Crime rates spike. Not because people are inherently bad, but because desperation drives choices that stable prosperity never would. Neighborhoods that were safe become dangerous. Communities that were cohesive fracture along economic lines. The social trust that held society together erodes rapidly when survival becomes uncertain. This is the hidden cost of currency collapse. Not just economic pain, but the breakdown of the social contract itself. This is the America that emerges after a 50% dollar collapse. Not a temporary recession, not a downturn followed by recovery, a permanent restructuring of society, economy, and power. The country that exists at the end of year one bears little resemblance to the country that existed at day zero. Now here's what you need to understand. This scenario isn't inevitable, but it's not impossible either. Every currency collapse in history was preceded by the same signs we're seeing today: unsustainable debt, reckless money printing, declining international confidence, emerging alternatives to reserve currency status. The Romans saw these signs and ignored them. The Weimar Germans saw them and ignored them. The Zimbabweans, the Argentinians, the Venezuelans, they all saw the warning signs, and they all chose to believe it couldn't happen to them. Because it's easier to believe your empire is special than to prepare for its fall. But history doesn't care about your beliefs. The mathematics of currency collapse don't negotiate. They simply are. The question isn't whether these forces will eventually overwhelm the dollar. The question is whether you'll recognize the pattern before it's too late to position yourself correctly. The throne is made of paper. Paper burns. That's not pessimism. That's history. Subscribe to The Paper Throne for weekly videos on currency collapse, monetary history, and the patterns that repeat throughout every empire's fall. Next week, we'll examine Rome's paper throne, the original currency collapse that set the pattern every empire since has followed. What would you do in a 50% dollar collapse? Tell me in the comments. I'm curious how many people have actually thought this through. Until next time, the throne always falls.